Hello YouTube, so today I want to talk about stress because I have been very stressed recently, mostly from work and a few other personal things which I won't go into a lot of detail right now. Just let it be known that I have been very stressed and been trying to find ways to cope with that stress. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about ways to be able to cope with stress when it feels so overwhelming, and maybe give some people some coping mechanisms that they hadn't thought of to be able to deal with stress. The way I deal with stress when I'm working on something and the stress is in that moment from whatever I'm working on and it needs to get done, I usually listen to podcasts because I find podcasts aren't that distracting enough to distract me from whatever I'm working on, but they are distracting enough to get me out of my brain, to not constantly go over that stress as well as whatever I'm working on. And I find podcasts are very useful when I'm actually in a stressful environment working on something, usually by myself. But I have other coping mechanisms because sometimes the stress invades my personal life when I'm not working. When I'm just by myself, I might start thinking about all the work I have to do. I might start thinking about all these other personal problems, and it just goes around and around in my mind. How do I calm down from that stress? Well, usually I'll play video games, or I'll try and read a book, or I'll try and call one of my close friends or loved ones to just talk it out. Not necessarily to ask for answers, but just go, look, I'm so stressed right now. This is what is happening. Can you just listen? That's all I need. I just need you to listen, and maybe a hug if they're in person. I'm a big hugger, and that usually helps me calm down a lot. Of course, these are just things that I have found over the years that have worked for me when I'm in very stressful situations. Of course, there may be many other things that work for you. Maybe it's music, writing music. I find that helps me a bit. Usually it helps me with other emotions, not necessarily stress, but maybe it works for you. Maybe drawing or writing, or even trying to work out the problems and all the things you're stressed about will actually help you. That doesn't necessarily help me, it just makes me more stressed and worried, but maybe it will help you. The main important thing is, even though I've given a couple of different examples of how I deal with stress, is however you're dealing with it, deal with it. Don't let it fester. Because I've found when I've let stress fester, when I've just been thinking about it and going over it over and over again and let it invade my life, is that it starts turning into anxiety for me. It starts turning into fear, it starts turning into depression. And once I go into those states from stress, it's very, very difficult for me to get out of those states that I'm in. It's very difficult for me to realize that stress, which in one situation could have been helpful. If I'm trying to meet deadlines, if I'm trying to get stuff done, stress in that situation can be helpful, but once it starts invading my personal life, invading my thoughts, it's no longer helpful. It starts sending me down into anxiety, depression, fear, whatever. And once I'm in those states, it's very difficult for me to go, alright, this may help me in this situation. It just becomes that worry, becomes that anxiety. And that's the thing that I want to warn against, that if you're feeling very stressed, worried, whatever in a situation, don't let it become anxiety, fear, depression. Talk about it, or do one of your coping mechanisms. And if you feel so stressed you feel you're going to fall into one of those states, maybe go seek help, go talk to somebody that can help reduce the stress. If it's from work, if it's from personal problems, maybe see if you can pull back from them a bit. Not to hurt anybody in those situations, but just for your own mental health, because I know how stress can affect your mental health if you let it go on for too long. That is the danger, and I hope none of you have to experience that the way I've experienced it numerous times over my life. So those are my thoughts and ideas and some coping mechanisms for how I deal with stress. If you feel you want to share how you deal with stress, or if this video has been helpful, please talk about it down in the comments below. I hope you have an awesome, stressless week ahead. You'll see me next week, and don't forget to be awesome.